Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 93 of Nostalgia Talk. I'm James, and joining me today is the one and only, the irreplaceable, there's that big word there, irreplaceable, Jim Meskimen.
Thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate that. Thanks, James. Yes, certainly in my household, I'm pretty irreplaceable.
Well, you're definitely one of a kind in our universe. And for any of those who are not aware, Jim is an actor who's mostly well known as an impressionist. You can check out his social media and YouTube in the links in the description, where you can see his impressions of many different figures in the media. Yeah, and in politics as well. He's done political figures in online projects, film, and television. And he has also jumped to the other side in roles in film and TV live action, such as Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Kickin' It, Even Stevens, the film Our Lips Are Sealed with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, and has also done voice doubling for the Genie in Aladdin and Nigel Thornberry for various Nickelodeon projects.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I just did the Robin Williams Genie again for Disney for a little project that they had just a couple of weeks ago. It's always a real great honor and a lot of fun to do. So, thanks. Thanks for that introduction.
You're very welcome. So, as I said in that introduction, you've done a lot of different things in the performing arts. How did you become interested in acting in general?
Well, I think like a lot of little kids, you see performers that excite you, in movies and TV shows, and I watched TV and I just thought, wow, I'd like to feel that sensation. I'd like to produce that effect on other people. You see someone dancing around or being hilarious or portraying an interesting character, and you think, I wonder if I could do that. I feel like I could do that, and uh, then you have to wake up to the realities of like, well, how does one even get in that business? It's like, how do you make the connections? And that led me on this lifetime path of trying to be a professional, and and the game changes all the time too. So, but in the beginning, it was just really a very innocent kind of, boy, that looks like fun, and I'd like to make my friends laugh, or I'd like to see what that feels like.
So, when did you realize that you had a knack for impersonations?
Well, I always kind of enjoyed doing it for fun, and in my household, because my mom was an actress, also we would entertain each other by imitating people that we knew, people in our lives, and people that we admired on the screen. And it was just a fun thing to do. I never had any big design to be like Rich Little or something and be in a room in Vegas and have a long set of impressions. But so I just kind of monkeyed around with it. And, in school, I began to realize, well, I, I have a little bit of an edge on others. I maybe just because I practiced a lot or it was important to me or I listened more carefully or I wasn't doing other things. I kind of excelled at it a little bit. And round about when I think probably after my voice had changed, I began to think, I'm actually pretty good at this. This is kind of something that I like to do, that I do passably well. But I didn't really do it for any purpose other than just my own amusement or the amusement of my friends until I was in my 20s. And I moved to New York City to become an actor. And then it became useful to do impressions because I was in an improv company. I was studied some improv and I quickly got in an improv group called Interplay. And it was very helpful to have a member of the cast be able to do impressions of people of the day. To just be able to always turn to that person and say, okay, well, President Reagan, and make that person President Reagan. And things like that. And then I began to realize, okay, I'm in a community of actors, and of these actors, I am kind of the best. I'm the go-to guy. I'm the most useful guy at doing impressions. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe I should lean into that a little bit. And then it became slowly became a thing that helped me to distinguish myself among other actors. And I began to make money at it. Then when you start to get paid to do impressions, you get a lot of confidence. It's like anything.
Right.
And once somebody paid me to do an impression, I thought, well, I guess I must do this better than all the other people that auditioned because they're laying out hard money here. So that begins to, you begin to more and more come in contact with the fact that, well, I guess I'm ahead of the curve on this one, and I have a little more aptitude than everybody else. So then it's, what do you do with that? Because really impressions are just a tool. They're a facet of an actor's, toolkit.
Hmm.
Most of our favorite actors are also pretty good at impressions. They maybe not have 30 or 40 voices that they do, but they'll have a few that they do really well. And somebody told me recently that Sir Ben Kingsley is a
Hmm.
fantastic mimic, which I didn't know. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole and looked around to see what he's done, but he was at a party one time and Ben Kingsley was doing all these impressions. I thought, no kidding. And I know that Kenneth Branagh, the other British actor, is really good at accents, and he played Laurence Olivier in a movie about Marilyn Monroe. And you're like, wow, these guys, it really is just a tool of an actor is to portray another person in such a way that you go, well, that's a really good duplicate. That's a really good copy.
Hmm. And for all the listeners, if you actually do go to Jim's social media, you'll see what a great mimic he is of really anybody. So you can really definitely see how he gets all these gigs as a voice double for whether it's a fictional character, a celebrity, or a political figure. He's a pro. You're a pro. I have to say that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, Done John F. Kennedy many times. I've done, in fact, various members of the Kennedy family, Teddy Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, and they have slight differences, different individuals completely. And Nixon, I've done many times. Richard Nixon, you talk about political characters, and he's one that has been embraced by a lot of projects, a lot of fiction and nonfiction kind of approaches. And one person I love to do, and I've not been paid to do, is the great Patrick Stewart. And
Mm.
I'm in the wings if they ever need him, a replacement for him on Family Guy, which could happen, I suppose. But although there have been several auditions, but they have not seen the need to call me up yet. And then, as I said, Robin Williams, and you mentioned it too, the Blue Genie is a lot of fun to do. I used to do that George W. Bush quite often for the Tonight Show. Not tonight, but way back in the nights, the old nights. Not them round table nights, but anyway, a while ago in the used to was.
We could do a debate and just have like a presidential debate as a skit and just have you do everything. It would be hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did actually a recording for a couple times for the of Biden and Trump talking on the phone together, and it's fun to put these characters together. And then of course I did Colonel Sanders for a good long time, and that was on commercials for the KFC brand. And I still hoping they'll come back. At this point, they've sort of parked me at the side of the road for a while. Apparently, it's not advantageous to have some old white Southern gentleman selling your food. So that could change any time. I suppose it's all the way the pendulum swings. But for the moment, I'm parked over here. But it's always ready to go.
And that's the end of the interview. I'm kidding. So as I said in the intro, in addition to doing a lot of these impressions for skits, you've also appeared in TV and film doing original characters.
Hmm.
And you were in one of my very, very favorite episodes of one of my very, very favorite sitcoms, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Well, you've been on that a couple of times doing various different characters. What was that show like?
Yeah, the first one I did, thank you for remembering it. That's 1994. And it was, I remember it, well, I remember the date only because we had just moved back to Los Angeles with our young daughter at the time, who was about 3. So, yeah, and I got a friend of mine who I'd grown up with, not a close friend, but someone I knew, was one of the producers of the of the show, of the Will Smith Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And he and another friend of mine conspired to get me on that show because they liked what I was doing with improv and impressions, basically.
Mhm.
And I guess Will did too. So there was a plan, kind of a scheme at that time for that first episode that I did, where I played his his Western philosophy professor.
Mhm.
In the brief moments when Will Smith's character went to college.
Yeah, and then realizing, wait a minute, this teacher seems because Will thought that he was a student, so he was trying to screw with him, and then it's like, well, you're gonna screw with the teacher, huh? Little problem with
Mhm.
that. I kind of am the teacher, so
Right.
this is gonna be really hard for you. But and I remember the line, I'm gonna make this very difficult, and then he looks at Will like, you're dead meat, boy. And then as Will's watching the class after dropping out, your character was like, well, what he really meant by I'm going to make this difficult for you was you're going to be thinking in a way that you never have before. And I really like that. It seemed a little bit less threatening. Because like
Yeah.
when I was in college, I had a very intimidating teacher, but she ended up being one of the best teachers I have ever had in my whole life.
Oh, really? Wow. What
Mhm.
was the subject?
I studied film.
Okay.
I had this particular instructor for a lot of stuff. And most of it was a lot of filmmaking stuff. Like they were the ones who assigned us a lot of our big projects, and yeah, I learned a lot from this particular person.
But she was challenged you sometimes.
Very much, and I've kept that with me all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely the way that character was designed. He really was kind of supposed to be a bit like, funny enough, Robin Williams' character in the Dead Poets Society, who was a little bit avant-garde, did impressions, was entertaining and challenging to the student, and talked about big things. So within the kind of context of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that was the way that my character was designed. So I did that show, and it really was supposed to be kind of a pilot for a series that would be about that teacher, which for one reason or another did not come to pass. But a
No,
few
that's a
years,
shame.
yes, I can't only blame myself. I chose another pilot, and that one died the death. So we'll never know if the Jeremy Mansfield pilot would have taken off and uh, changed my career, but the episode still lives on and people like it a lot. And then later on, they called me back and I did another character, which was the producer of the Hillary show, his cousin Hillary. And I did about 6 episodes as that character. But the first one was really the best one, and that's one I'm recognized for the most often.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up that it was meant to be a little bit like the Robin Williams character in Dead Poet Society,
Yeah,
because you did a couple of impressions in that episode.
right.
So that and in other live action shows that you've done as well, I've seen you do the occasional impressions. So and you established that it was kind of like in that case meant to be like Robin Williams, but on other shows, is it like because they know that you're an impressionist? I would assume is it a case of like, here, you're good at doing impressions. Do you think maybe you could deliver the line doing this? Or do they sometimes say, just do whatever impression comes to your mind when you think of this? Or other times is it like, no impressions, keep it serious?
It's all those things. It depends on the gig and what it
Okay.
is. When I worked on Gaslit with Julia Roberts and Sean Penn a couple of years ago, this Watergate drama, I portrayed a senator who was an actual person, and I tried to not do an impression of him because there was not a whole lot of video of him for some reason, but a little bit. But I did try to create a character that was very different from myself and a different sort of accent and so forth. And once I did get hired, the director, Matt Ross, found out a little bit more about me and realized that I was an impressionist. And I was gonna, because of that, he was gonna have me do some Nixon stuff for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And for strange reasons that I don't fully understand, they didn't wind up using my Nixon. I think they used archival actual Nixon recordings and didn't actually need to have an actor come and reproduce something. There wasn't a whole lot of Nixon in the show. So in that case, it would have been a little bit of both. Um, most of the time, I'm given quite a bit of leeway in Parks and Recreation, where I played a character named Martin Housley, and I was emceeing a lot of events and whenever there were awards shows or telethons and things like that. Uh, I forget how it started exactly, but um, I kind of I got to kind of push him a little bit, push the character so that he was a little bit of a bad impressionist or an amateur impressionist.
Okay.
It integrated well with that with one of the episodes that I was working on. But before that, he had just been a standard presenter. And then for some reason, I think it was the beauty pageant episode where I had him do a little Johnny Carson thing, and they liked that. So I thought, well, maybe that's an aspect of this character is that he's kind of like thinks he's a good impressionist, and he's actually not that great. And so we exploited that in future episodes.
Okay.
So I guess it's just like I said, it's an acting tool, and I seem to be more drawn to although I love doing impressions, I'm more interested in telling a compelling story by whatever means, whatever shifts. And so I don't mind just playing ordinary people or
Hmm.
people that we don't instantly recognize. And then if I need to play someone well known, like I played the talk show host Phil Donahue in a show called Welcome to Chippendales, and that was a very full on, head to toe impersonation of the guy down to this huge hairpiece full of white hair that they gave me and they stapled onto my head and the glasses and a little bit of a paunch they gave me and all this stuff. And that was fun. And that the point of that was to, as closely as possible, portray and be convincing as that other person.
Yeah, I mean, like physical impersonations like that are one thing when it comes to like voice impersonations, but physical impersonations are, I feel like that would be a little bit harder.
Well, it's just more work, it's more
Yeah.
observation, takes more study. And uh, it was fun. I enjoyed it very much because I didn't watch Phil Donahue much when he was on TV, but luckily there's a lot of video, and I just kind of crammed on the video, and then when they had the whole set and all the people and the guests and the audience and everybody's dressed up in '90s clothes and the cameras were there, it was fun to inhabit that role.
Mm. So another project that I mentioned in the intro was the Mary Kate and Ashley movie. Actually, before I go to that, I forgot to ask about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. What was it like working with Will Smith?
Oh, it was fun. It was a very warm set. They were a family, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Will was, uh, as he is today, a very busy performer, and I remember he had especially in the later episodes that I worked on, he got super, super busy, and his days were really full, and he had all kinds of power. So he didn't spend a whole lot of time on the set, and he had a woman that was basically not a stand-in, but she would rehearse with the cast as him.
Mm-hmm.
It's, this I forget her name. She was just wonderful. She had red hair. She was a uh, wonderful actress. She would learn his part, basically, learn where he had to stand and interact with people, any kind of physical stuff. And then when he came in later on, she would teach him how to do it all. And so he had to spend a minimum of time rehearsing things. I thought, wow, that's being in a position of power for sure. But in that first episode that I did, where I played his teacher, yeah, it was my first multi-camera shoot. I was still. It was really the first TV show I'd ever been on as a proper actor, and I'd moved back, as I said, from New York, and it was they made me feel very welcome. It's a week-long process, as you probably know. You start off with the table read, and then you keep moving it on the stage, and you block it out, and you change things, and then on the final night, you shoot it a couple times in the daytime, and with one set of, I think they brought in an audience in the daytime, and then they brought in an audience at night just to cover everything. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that isn't done as much anymore. They've a lot of shows sound like they have people in the audience, and they don't. They don't actually have them. They just kind of record it, can use recordings of laughter. But it's much better when you have a room full of excited people. And in that show, there was a big audience, big house full of excited people that were happy to be there. So it was a really fun experience, and I I enjoyed it so much. And I know one of the reasons why you were inspired to contact me is you saw the recent rap number I did, the video where I talk about how I get recognized at a particular place for my role in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I created a rap song about it in the style of the Fresh Prince a little bit, and it's about how I get recognized at the TSA more than anywhere else, and for only that role. Whenever I go to through airport security, I get asked about, "Are you an actor?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Where have I seen you from?" Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's it.
And that is why Jeremy Mansfield deserved his own show.
That's right. Right there. Right
Mhm.
there. That's the
Mhm.
evidence. Maybe it's not too late. Maybe there's a nostalgia thing. Whatever happened to Jeremy Mansfield? I'll have to pitch that. Yeah.
So, as I mentioned at the start, you worked with the Olsen twins in one of their direct-to-video films, Our Lips Are Sealed. What was that like?
Mhm. Oh, it was fun. I got to go to Australia. Those
I was
girls there.
wondering if they actually shot it in Australia.
I mean, I think we shot one or two scenes in LA, but we all went to Australia. Went to Sydney, and because there was all the landmarks that are there that are were not reproducible at the time. I think they could be done today, but we went to Sydney. It was my first time in Australia. I've been there several times since. It was really, really nice. I don't recall auditioning for it. I think I got offered the role, and if memory serves, believe it or not, Bryan Cranston was supposed to play a role.
Oh.
He either declined it or couldn't do it, and I got it. So the poor man's Bryan Cranston picked up that job, and my daughter was about 10 at the time, so it was perfect because she was a fan of Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Hmm.
And I remember coming home and saying, telling my daughter and my wife, guess what? We get to go to Australia to be in a Mary-Kate and Ashley movie, and it was a great, exciting moment. And I had a lot of fun working on it. It was a fun little character, fun little project, and going to Australia was amazing. I really enjoy going down there. I'm always ready to go back to Australia. I've been there about 4 or 5 times,
Mm.
and it's a hell of a long journey. It's wrenching to go there. It's
I
a
believe it.
14-hour plus plane ride. So with all the other travel, you wind up just being in transit for endless amounts of time. But worth it. Once you get there, you shake it off after a couple of days, and it's just a beautiful part of the world. And there were two girls. They were like at that time 13, 14 years old. I can't remember. They really were into their own thing. They were into one another, and I think it was their way of. They were at a stage in their career where they could kind of go. I think whoever was running their company and determining their future, they would go, "Well, girls, where do you want to go? Where would you like to vacation? Oh, let's go to Paris. Good.
I was just
Let's
thinking
write
about that
a
one, Passport to Paris. Yeah.
yeah, let's write a script about going to Paris. Okay." And then they would do that. And I think Australia was the same way. So I didn't get to know them particularly well,
Okay.
but and I played their dad, for God's sake. They didn't care about me at all. But they were very professional, easy to work with. Seemed a little bored. I don't think it was very challenging. And looking back on it too, I didn't watch the show, but I looked at some photographs, I think, from the movie. And I looked at one of the actors, and I went, "Wait a minute. I know that actor has become quite famous." And so a guy who had a little role as a hitman or something in that movie, or a gangster or something, is Jason Clarke, who was been in a ton of things, including last year's Oppenheimer, a massive part in Oppenheimer.
Mhm.
and he plays Jerry West in Winning Time. And I was like, oh my God, this guy, he really went places from our little show. He really zoomed ahead.
Hmm. And I mean, look at a lot of Disney stars these days, like Sabrina Carpenter and Jenna Ortega. Like they started on these little Disney shows, and now they've basically taken on the whole world.
That's right. That's right. And I worked with Shia LaBeouf on Even Stevens when he was just a little bratty little kid. And
What
I
was
worked,
what was he like?
he was a bratty little kid. He was just having fun on a show where he was a star. He was horsing around. He would probably exactly the way I would have been if I'd had that much power. Uh, yeah, but I mean, he's obviously dedicated himself to being a really terrific actor. I mean, he's had his moments of personal irresponsibility, but he's a great dedicated performer. I think he's a legitimately a good actor and serious, serious about making discoveries that create good performances that affect people.
Hmm. Well, talking about actors like that, you worked with Jim Carrey in Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas,
Yep.
where you had a speaking role towards the end alongside of Jim Carrey. What was that like?
Yeah, I had quite a big role actually. The Officer Houlihan, I worked on the show for 4 months.
Hmm.
And that was at Universal, and that was quite a great experience. I mean, I remember it very, very fondly. We started shooting about this time of year. I think we started shooting in August of 98 or 99, and all the way through December. So it was Christmas for a good long time there here at the Meskimen house. And meeting Jim Carrey, working with Jim Carrey was great. He is a real pro,
Hmm.
very professional, very disciplined. He had people probably know that he had a very difficult time with the makeup and the costume.
Yeah, and I hear that they're doing another one with him. Like I have heard rumors about that for quite a while.
Another what?
Another Grinch movie.
Ooh, wow. Well,
I haven't
that's
heard him
not
confirm it,
heard that.
but
Yeah, I have not heard that. I mean, they just did a 3D animation with Benedict Cumberbatch a few years ago.
that's
Anyway,
right.
at the time when we were doing it, it was a very uncomfortable experience for him. But he was, you know, it's funny. I worked with him a lot. I did not get to know him well because we were all under mountains of makeup, and it was, when you star in a movie like that, you're busy every minute of the day.
Hmm.
You're either getting your makeup on, which I think in his case took like 4 or 5 hours a day. That's a long time. The rest of mine took 3 hours. Always about 3.5 hours to put on, and that didn't change. So 4 months of that, and so it's not as It's funny when we see people in a movie, we think, oh, they must hang out and they must get to know each other and become friends, and sometimes you just don't. Sometimes,
Right.
sometimes you're just too busy, or it doesn't work out that way.
Hmm.
Others you do make friends. I've made friends on a lot of projects, but that's usually when there's not 3 hours of makeup involved.
One of my previous guests was Austin Pendleton. Do you know who Austin is?
Yes, yes,
Hmm.
very well. A lot of respect for him.
Yeah, we had a mutual friend. I said to that mutual friend, "Oh yeah, Austin's one of my favorite actors," and he said, "Do you want me to connect you?" And he did. And I talked to Austin about Finding Nemo, which of course was voice acting, and so
Mhm.
I asked him about his experiences in that, and he's like, "I did not work with Albert Brooks. I didn't work directly with Ellen DeGeneres."
No,
And
everyone's done
yeah,
separately.
yeah, and like you said with live action, like people think, oh, they must hang out a lot. Well, they've got their scenes, and then the people who aren't in those scenes are probably just getting ready for their next scene.
Yeah, or they 2 weeks from then or a month from then. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, because
funny
yeah, because they're
illusion.
not always needed on set, and when they aren't needed on set, they're not on set.
And not on set. Nobody's gonna pay him to be there. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's a funny illusion. It's all in the editing, and uh, when we watch a movie, we think, oh, all those people exist in the same universe at the same time, and they just don't always.
Hmm.
That's what's wonderful about theater and why actors usually like theater more, because you are there with the people, talking to the people in that moment. There's not any, usual any break in it, and the audience experiences it and you experience the audience experiencing what you're doing, and it's all very kind of condensed, and the illusion is more three-dimensional and involves everybody. So, and that's why it's also a lot of work, for
Hmm.
the actors, but fun.
Hmm. And earlier, I mentioned voiceover, which leads me into my next question. What was it like to be a part of the Avengers Assemble series?
Now that was a show which I did quite a few episodes of as
Hmm.
Ultron. I played Ultron, and that was great because the whole cast was in the room. It was unusual in that, and I'm not sure why it was done that way, but
Just kind of
uh,
contradicting what Austin mentioned about recording alone.
yeah, that was a rare exception where every time I go in, there were 8 or 9 actors, and we were all waiting around and listening to one another. And uh, that particular group of people were very chatty, and it was quite often that the director, Colette Sunderman, had to say, "Guys, guys, guys," to get everybody to shut up because they were like talking and joking and riffing and making fun and forgetting that they had a job to do.
And I can just imagine if they were in the same room that they could all hear them in the mics. Because I worked on a show once where my crew, we were set decorators. We had to be on set, but it was actually while they were filming. And of
Mm,
course, you know how it is. You gotta be quiet because they can hear us. And it's so weird. They could hear us. We couldn't hear them.
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, it was a fun show to work on. I enjoyed it. I've done animation here and there. I've done big shows and small. I worked with a show called Ask the Storybots, which is on Netflix. It's for little kids, but it's a super fun show and beautifully created by my friends Greg and Evan Spiridelis, who were responsible for all the jib jab stuff back in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a relationship I forged out of friendship, and then it became a lot of work for both me and my daughter, and my wife as well did voices for the show.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very cool.
Some of it here in this very booth, actually. Other times at studio external to our house. So yeah, you never know where these things are going to go, but there's something super fun about animation because you can play any sort of character, any age, aliens, inanimate objects.
It
I've
can go, it can go anywhere. Like
you
creatively,
go
it can just
literally
go
anywhere
anywhere.
creatively.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So that's really wonderful and magical.
yeah. From aliens to a New York family judge with her own reality show, or a ghost.
100%.
Hmm. So, how did you, in recent Disney video games like Kingdom Hearts, Disney Infinity, you've gotten to, and you were talking about it earlier, you've gotten to do the voice double for Robin Williams' Genie. How did
All
you
right.
get that?
Well, I auditioned for that. This was a time back when they were looking to cast somebody to do some of the ancillary roles that Robin didn't want to do.
Hmm.
He was still alive at the time. And, there are various little projects that they wanted to use the Blue Genie for. Uh, and so they auditioned me, and I luckily got the role, and I'm very pleased. He actually has been kind of woven in and out of my life by virtue of the fact that he had a big break on Happy Days. Mork from Ork first appeared on the Happy Days show, which my mother was on,
Hmm.
and so it was fun to play that character, and I've continued to do it. Now it's been over 10 years, I think. Well, yeah, it's been probably about 15 years that I've been doing it,
Hmm.
and it's always an honor, and a challenge, definitely a challenge to try to match that energy all the time and be creative and inventive. But
Hmm.
uh, Yeah. So I did it for Kingdom Hearts and done tons of stuff for Disney in general, but most of it probably has been Blue Genie stuff.
Hmm. And recently you were in the short film Once Upon a Studio.
That's right. That was celebrating 100 years of Walt Disney Studios.
God, I
Yeah.
see 100 years. Wow.
Yeah. It's gone by fast, I guess. And I auditioned for that too. I auditioned for the role of Merlin, and they gave me that. And then I also, when I got in there, they said we're also looking for an Eeyore. And I don't know what became of the actor that normally plays Eeyore, but I guess he was not available or something. And so I got to do that as well. And then I asked them, I went, wait a minute, who's doing your Blue Genie? Because I want to make sure they were aware that I was the guy that had been doing that for a long time. And they said, oh, we have that covered. They used archival recordings of Robin. So I thought, well, that's fine. That's acceptable.
It was a good
So,
way to honor him as well.
for sure, for sure.
Hmm. We were earlier talking about Will Smith. Have you seen Will Smith doing the genie in the live action Aladdin?
Oh, I haven't. I
Okay.
haven't. It
I,
must have
I,
been a clip of it, but I did not see the movie.
Okay. I saw it and I love Will Smith. I think Will Smith is one of those actors who can be funny when it's like Robin Williams as well and Jim Carrey, Tom Hanks. They can be funny when they need to be and serious when they really need to be.
Right.
With Will Smith doing the genie, I mean, I love Will Smith, but it wasn't as funny as Robin Williams.
That's a tough one. I'm curious to see why he chose that because it's you take a really super beloved iconic character and go, well, I'll put my spin on it. You're like, wow, you got to be really loaded for bear on that one. Um, it seemed like he might have been shooting himself in the foot. Although I'm sure it's magnificent and I'm sure he's terrific in it. But it's tough. It's like when they redid Psycho a few years ago. Gus Van Sant reshot Psycho with Vince Vaughn, and I was like, man, I don't know. You sure you want to? You sure you want to redo a classic film in the same terms? In other words, not really changing it up or modernizing it particularly, but kind of just doing it again. Your version is like well, it has to be a little. Uh, you can't be too surprised when people like prefer the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But
Uh,
Will Smith's a great performer. I mean, he's a great singer. We saw him recently. Finally, saw King Richard, the one that he won the Oscar for.
was that the one that he won the Oscar for when he, went up on stage and
That's the only Oscar he's ever won. So yeah,
Oh, okay. For some reason,
yeah.
I thought he's won more than one. I don't know why I thought that.
No, no. This was his big, his big night of highs and lows. Yeah, but the movie about Richard Williams, Serena and Venus's father. Uh, he was terrific, and it's a dramatic role, and it's a brilliantly played character, and
Mhm.
not like him at all, or not like the Will Smith I know. And it's just a pity that it had to be so tainted by later events at that award. But yeah, he's a really great actor, and he's worked hard at it. He also is one of these people, one of the few that I've met. I've met a few who just have what people talk about when they talk about star quality. There's a magnetism and a size of personality and almost more kind of a reach of personality. In other words, it's like the blast pattern of an explosive, that just, you know, a hand grenade will affect an area of, 100 yards away, and an individual can affect that kind of equal amount of space. And Will Smith is one of those people who you just, when he walks in a room, you're impacted by his very presence. And so when you combine that with a really good script or a really good project or a really good musical number or something, it's a force of nature. It's a big, big effect that he creates.
So, how did you get to take over the role of Nigel Thornberry?
Again, I just auditioned. They're looking for a sound alike. They were scrambling. Unfortunately, Tim Curry's health has not been up to it.
Yeah.
he had a stroke a few years ago, and so hopefully he will bounce back. But for the meantime, they were trying to keep that character alive for, I guess it's a video game, and so I did my best to sound like Tim Curry, which again is very, very sort of demanding. It takes a lot of energy.
It's funny because when I was in the fifth grade, we did a play of Treasure Island, and
Hmm.
which I was in, and I got the role of Long John Silver, and we used Muppet Treasure Island, which Tim Curry was in, as Long John Silver for inspiration. But
Ah,
I did not do an impression of Tim Curry, although my friends and I got together on my birthday a couple of months ago, and some of them did not go to elementary school with us, but one of them was like, "Oh, you should have seen James in that play. Like if a prop fell or something, he just went ahead like it was part of the show."
nice, nice. Yeah, that's you got to do that. That's great. Yeah,
Yeah, like I remember dropping something and I'm like, oh shoot, I dropped this. But I'm just gonna keep on going.
that's the right thing to do. That's what real professionals do. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, you hear about that all the time. On stage, stuff is always going wrong. So it's very typical. And if you let it throw you off and not go with it, then it interrupts the show. Most often, if you do like what you did, the audience is completely unaware that it wasn't part of a planned thing.
Hmm.
So that's why it's always a professional touch to use whatever happens that goes wrong.
Hmm.
And sometimes it'll be to great comic effect, which is one of
Yeah,
the
like I remember I had to walk by somebody on the stage and it was not in the script for me to say, could you just get out of the way, please? But I added that. And I
Mhm.
don't think the actor was aware of the fact that I was going to be going past them. So,
Yeah. In Django Unchained, Leonardo DiCaprio has a scene where he slams like a human skull down on the table, and in doing so, broke it, and it
ooh,
cut his hand.
ooh.
And he didn't stop; he just kept in character, and it adds this interesting dynamic to the scene, and it integrates well with what's going on in the movie at that point. There's nothing wrong with the character having a bloody hand, and he's kind of a maniac anyway. And it's sort of like, wow, that's some good writing there.
Yeah. But anyway, with Nigel Thornberry, you said that with your mom being on your mom Marion Ross, by the way, I should have mentioned that. I did Google it, but I don't bring up the personal lives of my guests unless they say it first. And you had mentioned your mom was on Happy Days, and I did my research for this and did find that out, but I'm like, I won't say anything unless he does. But
That's
Mhm. But you had said that because of your connection with Happy Days and Robin Williams starting basically on that show, it does kind of make me wonder if you ever actually met Tim Curry.
I met Tim Curry at a recording studio one time that
Okay.
we weren't working on the same project, but he was there, and I introduced myself and told him I admired his work. And I mean, he's one of those few actors that have really created very long-lasting, iconic characters. And his Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror Picture Show is like, I mean, it's nobody will ever top that in that style.
Hmm. So to wrap it up, I want to ask you: do you have a favorite, like a personal favorite impression to do, or one that's hard to
Well, lately
do?
I really like doing Patrick Stewart because I enjoy his personality. I mean, he's a very convivial sort of social character and very gracious.
Hmm.
Is and his vocabulary is very nice. So whenever I speak as Sir Pat, I get to drag out some of my five-syllable words, which is always a pleasure. And people like it, and we resemble one another naturally through biology. And although the older I get, the more I look like him, so there's an advantage there.
But for you, is there any impression that you find harder to do than others?
Most of them.
Okay.
Donald Trump, for example, is one that I struggle with. I struggle because I can hear it. I hear him. And to some degree I can do it, but not like some people. Not like some people. I do it really, really well, and I'm jealous. Frankly, I'm jealous. And there's tons of impressions that I wish I could hit, voices I wish I could hit, and I keep working on them. It's a kind of a lifelong thing, and it depends on my interest level. It depends on, like, do I have this assignment, or do I have an audition coming up where I need to sound like somebody? Um, and there's certain voices that I'll never really be able to hit with the equipment that I have. People with super deep voices, or younger people like yourself, who I dare say it's out of my range at this point in my life, which is fine. So I hunker down and I sort of concentrate on the ones that I do really well.
Like Robin Williams and Sir Patrick and Tommy Lee Jones. I enjoy doing Tommy Lee Jones. That's a fun one for me to do. I enjoy it. There's not a lot of people that really sound like this. And Joe Biden too, as well, because I forget the question.
Well, I've really enjoyed speaking with you. Is there anything you want to say to wrap up?
Oh, no, just want to invite your friends and listeners to follow me on social media at Jimpressions on Instagram and at Jim Meskimen on TikTok.
Where you'll hear
Also,
all of his incredible Jimpressions.
that's right. And I'm on YouTube as well. And gosh, I do my live show. If you ever come to Southern California, just check in at jimmeskimen.com and see if I'm doing a show. And yeah, you can get on my mailing list as well at jimmeskimen.com. Anybody ever needs a celebrity recording, like a little greeting or a birthday wish or happy anniversary, as any of the characters that I do that too as a service. So
Like on Cameo?
I do it on Cameo, and then I do it as just as a recording off of my own website too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys heard the man. There's all the information that you need if you want to look him up. Jim, thank you very much for joining me today.
You bet, James. Take care. Thanks a lot for the gracious interview.
Thank you. And to all you listeners, I'll see you next time. Peace out.